Hello everyone, today's first look is at the upcoming skills module for Game Creator. I've created a couple of use cases to show the versatility of this module, but before we start I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. So I'll be showing you a very early look at the new skills module, and some things might change and the way it functions might be slightly different with the end product, but it was really cool to already give this a try. MiTschMR Studios gave me this in advance so I could, try it out and see what to do with it. Now, obviously, skills will often be related to, magical abilities, and obviously all of that is possible. But I thought it would be interesting to show a couple of different use cases as well, just to show that this is not just for your fantasy games. This can also be used for shooters, for example. So first scenario, we're going to start off with magic, and I'm only going to press one button here, so nothing else, just one button click, and this is what happens. Now I want to highlight a couple of things here. So all of these enemies are gathered at the beginning of the, let's say initiation of the skill. So the moment I press the button, that's only the moment these enemies will be gathered, stored, and targeted with the spells. So really cool. I'll dive in a bit deeper on how I did that. So let's try scenario 2. So this time I'll be demonstrating the melee module in combination with the skills module. Again, just one button press. As you can see, there's no sword drawn or anything. There's literally is just one action triggering, and that's it. So as you can see, we're teleporting, so a bit of magic use as well, and we're executing all of these enemies. And just like with magic, these enemies were not set until the moment I launched the skill. Now I'm going to demonstrate the last use case as well, and those who've played the last two Splinter Cell games might be quite familiar with the way this looks. So we are going to again just press one button, and this is what will happen. So we are using the execute feature. I thought it was really cool. I'm a big Splinter Cell fan. So obviously really happy that I can finally do something like this. Now that I've shown a couple of different use cases and that it's not just for magic, but obviously I'm pretty sure that will be the biggest use case, let's dive into how all of this works. So here we are in our scene, and as you can see, we have one player, three enemies, and on the player we have one empty I've created, and basically these are three different triggers that execute three different skills. So we have melee, this is the shooter execution, and the magic one. And that's it. As you can see, there's no other actions. There's nothing really in here. So that's pretty cool. We have our enemies as well, and all they have for the moment is a simple, on receive damage from be it shooter, melee, etc. that they will ragdoll and, throw a little blood around, and that's it. On the player, we have one component, which is skills, and the really cool thing, I do want to highlight that, is once I hit play here, you'll see that the following skills are marked as unlocked. So it's more than just a component that is required in order for it to work. It actually tracks what skills we have and if they are unlocked or not. So what does this actually mean? What is unlocked, locked? So if we go to preferences, and if you have a couple of modules, you'll be familiar with this. We have the the standard variables, we have dialogue, inventory, and now we also have skills. So I have three different ones set up, and I'll run through them. We have types as well, so I have general, gun, melee, magic, and we have settings. Now this is something that isn't ready to show yet, so we'll have a skill tree UI as well. We can save skills, and the couple of really interesting things here is level target and level stat and skill point targets as well. So basically the skills module is integrated with the stats module, so you can pick that stat in order to link it to the level requirements for your skills. So really cool. As for skill points, it is tied to a global variable, so I've set a simple one up. So as you can see, skill points, and I mean that's it. So what does a skill consist of? So I'm going to open up the melee one, and as you can see, we can set a name, description. We can set an icon as well. Didn't do that because I don't really have any icons in this project, but yeah. These are the skill types, so those are the ones I just showed you in types, and that's just to make sure we can categorize everything properly. So is this assignable to a skill list? And when we have different types. Now these types basically work on the skill events. So we have what happens on activation, on cast, execute, and finish. And if you've ever used assets like ABC before, that's kind of what these categories reminded me of. It is quite similar in the way it functions, and obviously this time around it works all with Game Creator, and it works really well. I'll go over the rest in a bit. Basically, I've chosen cast execute for all of these things because I do like to have these different stages. But if you don't want that, you can have instant execute and permanent execute. Now, permanent execute is for those type of skills that have a permanent effect. So, increased health, for example, increased strength, whatever. Now we have cast time, execution time, and cooldown time. And if you change this to, for example, instant execute, you only have the two. So, it highlights as well which you are using. So cast execute, we can set the time for all of these three things. Conditions, so conditions that need to be true in order to activate it. So think mana, for example, if you are using a magical ability. Just add the condition. So stats player mana is greater than, I don't know, 50. Just making something up here. But that's literally just how easy it is to add that condition. Obviously that's something everyone will be using in an actual game, so really important it is here. Now we're up to the really interesting part. So skill state. Is it locked or unlocked by default? So right now, because we don't actually have a skills tree set up, I just kept everything at unlocked. But obviously, you'd keep your skills locked in your game, and as you progress, you can unlock these. I'll show you how to do that as well. It's actually incredibly simple. So we have unlocked and locked. Use skill points in order to unlock it. That's something I personally really do enjoy. Games like Assassin's Creed have that as well. So once you level up, you get a skill point, you use that skill point, and you unlock it. We can also have level requirements, which again is something that is often used. So you can only unlock a skill at a certain level. So quite useful. And then relies on skill. Basically meaning, if you have a second stage skill, again, something we can see in the latest Assassin's Creed games, you'll have the reliance on other skills before you can unlock them. So really, really cool. And we can add additional conditions. So, if you only want these to be unlocked at a certain stage in your game, for example, which often happens after certain story moments, you can do that as well. So here we have, what happens on activate, cast, execute, and on finish. So for my melee skill, for example, on cast, and yeah, here we go. So what happens when we start casting, so the first stage basically of the skill, we are gathering tags of objects, which are the enemies in this case. We are storing them in a list variable. At the beginning we clear this list variable so that just to make sure that every time you execute this, it will only gather new tags around you. So quite important. And yeah, all of these will be cleared, then they'll be gathered, they'll be stored in those list variables, and the player draws his sword. We're having we're instantiating a particle effect and instantiating a post-processing effect. I personally like using post-processing effects, so really sweet. All of these are stored as well in a variable so that at the end of this we can actually destroy them again, so remove them. Quite important as well, just to make sure your hierarchy doesn't flood with with objects you instantiate. Then on execute, time slows, not because it's necessary, because we're not actually controlling the player anyway, but just because it looks kind of cool. And then we're teleporting to these objects in the list variables, focusing on them and meleeing them, and basically just on repeat for 3 different ones. Now, for example, if we look at execution, it works pretty much exactly the same. It's not really that much of a difference for the shooter one, but we're only targeting 3 enemies at a time. Now, if you would have, an upgradable skill, for example, where you'd want to target 4 at a time, you could simply duplicate this one and call it execution 2, change the reliance of execution 2 on execution 1, and that way, you'd have to have 1 unlocked in order to get 2, and 2 would basically become the upgraded version. So, a really simple way in order to do that. And yeah, in the way it functions, it's all pretty much the same. So we're clearing the tags, we're gathering the tags at the moment of execution, and that's when we'll execute all of these actions. And it's nothing special. We're just looking, changing the camera a bit. We're aiming at the characters, we're shooting, and then we're shooting aiming at the next one, and it's all just based on a simple list variable. And on finish, obviously, we stop aiming, reset time, change the motor back again, and we destroy the post-processing effects we instantiated just to clear everything up. And magic, honestly, it's pretty much the same. There will be a bit more effects, so we're adding a couple more particle effects, but basically we're instantiating these on the actual list variable locations as well. So pretty much the same tactic here, not really all that different. A bit longer because we're instantiating all the time, but yeah, really cool. And we're changing some animations as well, of course, in order to really accompany that magical touch. So as you can see, it is, sure, the magic one is a bit longer than the other ones, but it's actually really simple to do this. And the great thing here is that once you've set this up, that's pretty much all you have to do. So you set up everything in your preferences, you make sure you have a component, and then, just like with what you're used to with the melee module, for example, you call one action that executes that skill, and that's it. That's literally all there is to it. Now, there are more actions, so let's create an empty here. Let's add a trigger. And I didn't even check, maybe there are triggers as well. There are triggers as well. So on skill, activation end, start. Wow, that's actually really cool. So yeah, as you can see, plenty of triggers as well, all related to the skills. I'm just going to do an on start. It doesn't really matter because I just want to show you what actions we have as well. So we have execute skill, obviously, and it will just grab everything from the preference window. So all of these are marked here. And the important part, of course, is set skill state. So, if I don't know, with a shop or on a certain level you hit, you can change that skills become locked, unlocked. And yeah, you know, pretty simple. That's the whole point of this, is to make things really simple. You know, there's this for the moment as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see if there's some conditions as well. So I'm going to remove this, add some conditions. So is the skill executing, and you know, again, is the skill unlocked? So yeah, it's really complete so far. The module isn't even close to finish yet, as far as I've heard. Well, actually, supposed to be around November. I'm not really sure how much still needs to be done, because it all works incredibly well. Outside of the skill tree, which I've shown before will be in there but isn't at the moment, I wouldn't really have any idea what he could possibly still add. It's incredibly complete. It works incredibly simple, which is what I really like, and it allows for a lot of new things that weren't really possible before. Personally, I'm really excited about the, you know, the Splinter Cell-esque execution feature. I think it's really cool to be able to do something like that. I haven't had this module for a while, so these 3 examples were the only things I've come up with so far, but I think it was really cool to demonstrate what you could do with this. You know, it's obviously a lot of people will be using this for magic, but there is a lot more to it than just using magical skills. So I thought it was really cool to do. That's it for this video. Thanks again to MiTschMR Studios for letting me try this in advance. If all goes well, we'll see this module released next month. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.